This is a trigger warning. The following film contains mention of child sexual abuse material, grooming, sexual abuse of a minor, and dementia. Listener discretion is advised.
Lights, camera,
Rolling.
action.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Let Me Be Frank, a podcast about movies. As usual, I am Frank, and I want to thank y'all for being here today. Thank you for giving me your most precious commodity, which is your time. And with that being said, please don't forget to follow, comment. Let's try and build a community. That's ultimately what I want from this, is just to gather like-minded people who just like good film, that we can all get together. And with that being said, please do not forget to follow and comment. I want to try to improve the show as much as possible, and you could help me do that. So, we're going to start getting into our film for today. And yes, I did say film. I know normally we do 2 movies a show, but I came across a movie that I thought was worthy of its own episode. I won't do this a whole bunch unless I really, really like the movie. And this particular film, I mean, you've read the description, you saw the title, that's why you clicked on it. This film is called Knox Goes Away. It is produced and directed and starring Michael Keaton. Yes, that Michael Keaton, the original Batman, Beetlejuice. And when I say the original Batman, I mean for the movies. I know Adam West played him on TV. The original film version of Batman, Michael Keaton. This film is worthy of all those trigger warnings in the beginning. This film is outstanding. So first, before we start talking about plot lines and all that, I just want to say that this is going to be a spoiler alert, heavy spoiler warning throughout the entire film. We're going through everything. If you have not seen this movie, I highly encourage you to go watch it, whether you listen to this entire review first or if you go watch it and then come back. I highly, highly recommend this movie. It is available right now on Max. Just type in Knox Goes Away, or it may even be on your homepage like it was for me. It was there for a while. I have been seeing this movie for quite a while, and I never clicked on it. And I decided to go ahead and click on that. And I was absolutely blown away from the acting, which is top notch. I mean, everyone who was in this film knocked it out of the park for what they were supposed to do. The scenery is devoid of color. It's very kind of dark and gray, and everything is kind of somber all the way through. So this movie paints a very grim picture right from the beginning. Everything in this movie is meant to, it only pushes the storyline. There's no ridiculous filler. There's not a whole bunch of, things going on that has nothing to do with the main plot. Everything is building towards something, and the story and the twists and turns are phenomenal. This is an extremely well written movie. Everything that happens is within the realm of possibility, and it grabs you from the beginning and it never lets go. So with that being said, I'm gonna stop yapping about it, and we're gonna get into it once again. Heavy spoilers, and here we go. Several pocket items lie on a table with the sound of a clock ticking in the background. Someone is gathering up the items as if they're about to go out. Soon we see someone driving a car with this extremely somber jazz music playing out of the speakers. And I'm talking like, this is like what you would expect if you were, in a funeral scene in a movie. So Knox, played by Michael Keaton, arrives at a diner where his friend Tommy is waiting for him. They have a short conversation, and the waitress pours coffee in a cup for Knox. She leaves and comes back, and he asks her again for a cup of coffee. And it's more like, hey, you mind giving me a little bit of coffee? And he hadn't even touched it yet. She points out that she already did, and he has it right there. Knox kind of blows it off. He tells the person he's sitting with, Tommy, that he has personal business to attend to and he has to catch a flight. Tommy asks him, why does he need to catch a flight? Now, Tommy's grilling him about why he needs to take a flight. He says that the boss wouldn't like it if he was taking outside work. Sounds very suspicious. Uh, Knox then tells him, it's going to be fine. I'll be back in a day. So they part ways, and Knox is in a doctor's office being shown flashcards with pictures on them. We then find out that he is suffering from an aggressive form of dementia. He is told that he has weeks and not months before the disease completely takes over. So this activated a really big fear in me. I can't imagine sitting across from a doctor who's telling you that this life altering disease is literally going to wipe out your memory, your cognitive functions, that in just a few short weeks you're going to be almost helpless. You're going to lose where you are. You're going to forget things that, you're going to forget people that you've known your entire life. Your wife, your children, they're going to be wiped from your memory. Obviously, he takes the news like a lot of us would. They always portray these scenes with like the doctor still talking to you, and it's almost like a bomb went off where you're just hearing this ringing in your ears, and you're kind of like so far within yourself that you don't really hear anything else around you, and then you kind of snap out of it. That's essentially exactly what happens here. And I instantly started to feel for this character because that is a fear, that I believe a lot of us do have. If you sat across from a doctor and he told you that you had developed stage 4 cancer or some other devastating life altering disease. So this part really got to me, and we're already on a path, and it seems like the dementia is going to play a huge role in this film. So the movie breaks everything down into weeks. So that's how I'm going to continue the review. So when I say week 1, everything that I talk about is going to happen in 1 week. So here we go. Week 1, Knox is in bed with a lady of the night. She asks him some personal questions, and he spins her a line of amazing bullshit. You can see that he can come up with this kind of stuff on the fly. Then we go to Knox and Tommy. They're preparing to do a job. They go inside, and Knox starts to have an episode. This is his first one since the diagnosis. Regains his faculties, and he walks in and executes his target. Turns out there is a woman in the shower with this person, and he kills her too. And then, as a helicopter flies by, Knox starts to have another episode. He's in a state of confusion, dizziness. He's trying to remember where he is and kind of what's going on in the moment. Tommy opens the door behind him, and Knox puts 2 rounds in his chest. Knox then has to lie to his boss Jericho about what happened. Knox makes a mistake when cleaning up the crime scene. So the killing of Tommy was not planned, obviously. So when this happened, he then had to make a whole bunch of decisions on the fly. He does make a mistake, which kind of puts the cops on his trail. Knox then goes to a man and says that he needs to cash out because he has to leave in a hurry. So Knox gives him instructions and takes off. We get another example of Knox's deteriorating mental condition when he goes to a storage facility. He goes there. It's not the right key. It's not even the right facility on the right part of town. He then goes home, places something under his bed when there's a knock on the door. It's his son, Miles, hand bloodied, asking for help. So Miles is standing outside his door, begging him to let him in. And at this moment, Knox forgets who he is. And since Miles doesn't know this, he thinks that his father is kind of punishing him for kind of being a jerk. They haven't talked in a while. They're going to get into why later on. Yeah, Miles' 16-year-old daughter gets pregnant by a 32-year-old man. Now, we're going to pause right there and you're going to digest that one because this is where the movie starts to really take you on this ride. So, he has dementia. He just answered the door to someone that he barely recognized. He eventually remembered who he was and he kind of snapped out of it and came back to his regular faculties. But now his son just came to his home covered in blood. And it turns out that a 32-year-old man groomed and then raped his daughter. And now she's pregnant. Miles goes to the perpetrator's house, fights the guy, and then he kills him. So not Knox, Miles gave a story about what happened. We can take it kind of with a grain of salt because we don't know this guy. He came to Knox, his dad, to help with hiding all the evidence. So Knox heads over to clean up the mess that Miles left. Miles is now at home, and we believe that he may have told his wife what happened, but they transition to the police station before their conversation starts. So they only kind of allude that he told her the full truth. Police know who Knox is, and now Knox is implementing a plan to help his son avoid jail. Knox enlists the help of someone he trusts to check in on him to ensure that he is on point. This person is going to be Xavier, played by Al Pacino, which was a pleasant surprise because I didn't know. I didn't watch the trailer for this. I just kind of threw the movie on. I didn't know that Al Pacino was going to be in this one, but lo and behold, there he is helping Knox stay on track. So what he does is he gives him a list of things that he's going to be doing. And what he needs Xavier to do is to call him every so often and make sure that he's still on track and that he didn't forget what he's supposed to do next. The cops are slowly putting the pieces together. I am going to allow you to figure out how the police put the pieces together because Knox makes a mistake, which kind of helps them. They're still not even close to discovering who he is, but they know that the crime scene involving Tommy and the other two people was staged. And how they know that, you'll have to discover on your own. But that is the end of week one. He finds out that his brain is going to essentially turn against him and wipe his memories out. Then his son shows up on his door, barely recognizes him, to find out that someone groomed and then raped his daughter. And that his son then killed him. Boy, oh boy. And guys, this is only week one, okay? There's only week one. But here we go. Week two. Knox is deteriorating fast. He can even have his weekly massage session because he's in such a fog. So he forgets who this woman is that he's been seeing for about 4 years, they allude to, every Thursday at the exact same time. And all of a sudden, he forgot she was coming over. He forgot who she was. Miles and his daughter Kaylee go to the abortion clinic. She obviously looks absolutely terrified. Knox gets a call from Xavier. Knox continues to go through with his plan. Now, we don't exactly know what the plan is. We kind of just see Knox doing shit, and we're trying to follow along, but they're really not telling us anything about the plan, which is very unique. Normally, movies will clue us in, and then we kind of watch them execute it, but right now, we have no idea what Knox is doing. So Knox finds a key to a locker, but he can't remember where it goes to. Eventually, he figures out, and it's money. He figures out what it is. Knox then meets up with Miles just to kind of check in, and he's going to give him some vital pieces of the plan. Now, Miles, this motherfucker's losing it. He looks like he hasn't slept in days. He hasn't eaten. He looks like he's been crying and just worrying. And this obviously is worrying Knox. Knox literally calls him a walking confession. So Miles needs to really try and pull it together because, you know, if you went to enlist your dad in this and then made him an accomplice, you might as well just kind of suck it up and go through with it because you don't want to go to jail for the rest of your life. After a long talk, he tells Miles to go about his normal life. He tells him just whatever you're supposed to do tomorrow, just go and do it. I believe his daughter Kaylee was a gymnast, so she can't really go to gymnastics because of the procedure she just had. Probably left her pelvic region in a lot of pain. I've never gone through that. I have never asked any woman that has had that done of how they felt the next day, but I'm sure they didn't want to go and start doing cartwheels and flips. Knox tells Miles that eventually the police are going to put it together. They are going to figure out that the pedo, the dead guy, and Kaylee knew each other. So the cops are eventually going to question Miles because obviously. So he needs him to pull it together and to answer, you know, like he would. And you'll find out what that means once you watch the film. Knox is outside of Miles' home waiting for them to leave. Once they do, he breaks in and plants evidence in the house, including the murder weapon. So we still have no idea what this plan is, but he's now planting evidence in their home. The murder weapon, blood, all that stuff. We meet up with the Knox family, Miles, Kaylee, and Mom, it was like an outdoor restaurant where you can sit outside, but you can order inside. They're sitting outside when a guy walks in the place to pick up an order, but on his way in, he looks at Kaylee. While he's inside, he gives her a second look. Now, Miles is like, his hands are like twitching. This dude is ready to absolutely lose his shit. When the guy comes out, Miles runs up to this dude like a phone bill, and he starts beating the shit out of him. He was like, "Hey, are you looking at my daughter?" And the guy's like, "Who the hell are you?" And before he can even get that whole statement out, he takes a right hook to the face. Kaylee just sits there looking like she would rather be anywhere else than in her own skin at that moment. The cops arrive at Knox's house. They take him in for an interview. The dementia is really starting to ramp up. He can't even answer questions about his middle name. He forgot his middle name. He was very much trying to hold it together. At this point, the only people that know that he's suffering from dementia is him, Xavier, and the doctor. Those are the only people in the world. So they're trying to figure out why he's acting so weird. The cops are confused. In the interview, he leaves them absolutely stumped with no answers. Then he goes to see his ex-wife, Ruby. Now, this scene is extremely heartbreaking because this is the most human that we're going to see Knox in the film. Otherwise, he's either dealing with this disease or he's trying to handle the situation that his son is in. But he goes to talk to his ex-wife because she doesn't know about any of what's going on. This scene is very well done. It's very heartbreaking. This interaction, you can tell that there's a love there that neither one of them was completely ready to be done with, but after she found out what Knox did for a living, she just couldn't stay with him, which is understandable. The dude's a fucking hitman. I understand if you can't comfortably lay in bed, go on vacation, have sex with somebody who's going out and popping motherfuckers every other night. So there's a lot of love there. He kind of just tells her, "I'm going away." Which, if you think about it, he kind of is, because that's what the dementia's doing. But she thinks that it's more of a physical, he's running from something. and he kind of allows her to believe that. There's a lot of heartbreak in this scene. I would highly recommend watching it. She then asks, you know, how long this time? And he says, for good, which seems to really kind of crush her because as much as she made it seem like she doesn't want to see him, like I said, the scene shows that there's still something between them that if it wasn't for his job, they would have still been together. And that concludes week 2. All right, so we are heading into week 3. Week 3 is gonna be it's that week. Yeah, it's that week. So week 3, Knox's lady friend comes over again, so we know that it's Thursday afternoon. They talk for a bit as Knox's mental condition worsens. We head over to the police station where they crack the dead guy's phone and discover that he is talking to a lot of teenage girls. We also find out that he went to prison for child sexual abuse material and that once he got out, he never stopped and he went right back into it. Apparently, he was talking to a lot of teenage girls until he started to meet with one in real life, which the police find out is Kaylee. When they realize her last name and that John Knox is her grandfather, they rush to go and talk to the parents. Knox is breaking into a cabin in the woods that he owned 2 years prior to these events. After retrieving something from the cabin, Knox gets lost in the woods. The disease is really taking over at this point. He has a very bad episode. I don't know what they're called, but he really kind of loses it for a while, and that's how he ends up lost in the woods. Meanwhile, the Knox family is brought in for questioning about the pedophile's death. So Kaylee at this point seems to still be quote unquote in love with him. And she thinks that her parents called the cops and he's going to get arrested. They eventually tell her that he is dead and he was stabbed, I think, 37 or 47 times. It was somewhere around that number. Soon they find all the evidence that Knox planted at his son's house. So right now, as an audience member watching, I was very confused. I could not figure out why this was happening. I should have been able to see it, but I was too wrapped up in the actual storyline. Knox is found by someone in the woods. They call Xavier to come get him. Xavier takes him home, but when they get there, the hooker, Annie, the woman he's been seeing every Thursday for 4 years, has brought some men to his house to try and rob him. They intend on taking the whatever he got from the cabin, plus he had some priceless paintings. Now, this is where the disease did not take over. And unfortunately for these gentlemen, they learned and we got to see exactly how dangerous Knox is. This is one of the few action scenes in this film, and my goodness, it takes him virtually no time to take these 4 grown ass, big ass men down. Even though I think one of them or 2 of them had a firearm, they were no match. It was it was obliteration. Then we see Xavier finishing the cash out he's been talking about the whole movie. Xavier helps Knox finish his cash out. We cut to Miles in jail, orange jumpsuit and everything. Knox is waiting there. They pick up the phone and Miles starts to run his mouth. Knox is trying to get him to listen, but Miles won't stop talking. So at this point, Miles is fucking terrified that he's about to spend the rest of his life in prison, even though he went to his dad for help. Knox then flips on him and accuses Miles of ratting him out on his tax evasion charge that got him 6 years in jail. The scene ends with Miles being dragged away because he thinks he's about to do life without the possibility. And ladies and gentlemen, life without the possibility in jail is a long fucking time, especially because Miles is not 80 years old. He's probably, I would say, mid to late 30s. So he's going to be in jail for a hot ass minute. So now we're going to go back to the police officers who've been chasing Knox for the entire movie. Remember all that evidence that they collected that had Miles's DNA and blood, and he had the murder weapon hidden in his house? Well, as the forensic team start to do their thing, the crime scene investigators, they start to notice that the evidence is not only tampered with, but obviously made to look like Miles did it. From the print on the knife to the blood on the shirt to the hair on the coat to even the surveillance footage. All of it has been so doctored and messed with that none of it can be used. So our cops right now are beside themselves. They thought they had this mountain of insurmountable evidence that would put Miles away for the rest of his life. Turns out that not a shred of it is true. Not a shred of it can be used in the court of law. It would get thrown out by any lawyer worth even a tenth of his salary. So it's starting to come together exactly what he was doing. As you watch the film, you're going to notice he's putting things in places, moving stuff around, and it doesn't make sense while you're watching it. But once it comes together, it comes together. The detective chasing Knox search his house because the evidence is pointing back to him, and finds everything he used to create the evidence. He made his home and his kitchen look like a place where he manufactured all the evidence against his son. He is arrested and charged with the murder of the guy that got Kaylee pregnant. Everyone gets a good ending except for Knox. So Miles gets out of jail. He is obviously relieved. He receives a lot of money because of the cash out that Knox has been trying to do the whole movie. His ex-wife, Ruby, receives a whole boatload of money. Now, remember the hooker, Annie, that I told you about that brought the guys to his house? Well, they alluded to the fact that he kills her, but he doesn't. She was supposed to be given a portion of the money, but because of her shocking and heartbreaking betrayal, he allowed her to live, but she was essentially cut out of the will, and all she received was a whole bunch of his books, which, I'm sorry, I know reading is fundamental, but I'll take the fucking money every single time. So she kind of got what she deserves. The film ends with Knox staring blankly out of a window. The disease has completely taken over. There's a couple things that happen between here and there, but I will let you go discover some of these things for yourself. It's a very good ending. The only person I kind of feel bad for is Knox. Even though he's a hitman, it kind of creates these weird feelings where you want to dislike the guy because of what he did for his job and how cold and calculating he can be. But then you see the lengths he would go for his loved ones, and you want to root for him, but because they explain it very plainly, the doctor does, that there is no cure for this. There's nothing he can do. It's over. It's going to take a hold of you in a very short amount of time. It does take complete control of his brain in 7 weeks. So we kind of do a fast forward because, we weren't going to sit through a trial and all that stuff. But that is going to conclude the film. Knox Goes Away, available right now on HBO Max. I highly, highly recommend you go see this one. What I just told you doesn't even really do the film justice. It's one of the ones where you kind of have to see and experience the whole thing for yourself. I look forward to actually watching it again and not having to take notes, because when I do things for this show, I'm usually pausing so that I don't miss anything, and I try to type out as best of description of what I just watched, especially when something big happens. I am excited about viewing it a second time without having to do that and watching it straight through to kind of really maybe even catch some things that I didn't catch before. Like something I noticed whenever Knox is at home or alone, there's always a clock ticking in the background. Always. And I think that was a lot of foreshadowing and symbolism because his time was running out and he was racing the clock to try and save his son before he was pretty much rendered unable to do so. And since he knew that his brain was going to just erase everything, he could kind of do this one last job and he wouldn't remember anything about it. So that's going to go ahead and conclude the movie. I didn't want to leave us on that somber note. So there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, and it is a movie trailer. It is for the new Joker. So when I heard that it was going to contain music, people described it as a musical, I was instantly annoyed because I really, really, really liked the first one. Didn't understand how it was supposed to be a musical. I'm hoping that it just has maybe a song in it sung by Lady Gaga since she is playing Harley Quinn. But all in all, I think the trailer looks phenomenal. It looks like it's going to be a good movie. I'm interested to see where they're going to go with it. I am a huge Margot Robbie fan as far as Harley Quinn. I think she's done a good job, but for this particular film with a older Joker, not in that kind of and not in that sort of Batman universe, I think this her portrayal is going to work out better, Lady Gaga. But I very much look forward to seeing what they come up with and where they're going with this story because normally we don't follow villains for this long, but it doesn't seem like we're stopping anytime soon with his story. So I'm wondering exactly where we're going to go with this. Is he ever going to become the Joker that we know, or is he going to kind of stay like a regular guy who just does like small crimes? Or is he going to eventually become big bad Joker like we've come to know that kind of rules over Gotham and runs this huge crime syndicate? It's very interesting and I look forward to actually seeing the movie. I don't know if I'm going to go see it in theaters. If you've noticed, a lot of the movies I cover are available on streaming services. Like I said, I'm a father of two. You know, I have a full-time job. I can't go out and watch movies in theaters all the time. So I usually have to wait for them to come to one of the 100 streaming networks that we have. So uh, let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you thought of the movie. Let me know how I can improve. Put all of that in the comments. Go ahead and subscribe, or I believe it's follow on here. Thank you for giving me your time, and I will see all of you next week. Take it easy, y'all.